with a thwarted suicide in chapter 16, verse 27. Execution was the penalty for letting prisoners escape, especially in capital cases. Now this wasn't a capital case, but he had been told to guard them securely, and as far as he's concerned, all the prisoners may have escaped. He is awakened, not necessarily because he was asleep on duty. He may have been in bed. He was probably the chief jailer. He's got servants working for him, probably civic servants. So word is reported to him. He asks for a light to go in, and he doesn't actually go into the inner part of the prison, but he goes into the outside of it. He sees all the doors have been broken, and he realizes the prisoners could have escaped, and apparently would have escaped. And that's the idea that he gets from the guards, who probably were asleep, as often happened. But in any case, Romans considered suicide a noble alternative to execution. In fact, Tacitus says that Messalina, who was supposed to be executed, was a coward. She was unwilling to fall on her sword, so they had to help her do it. But in any case, it was normally considered a noble alternative. Josephus, who's writing for a diaspora audience, sometimes depicts it as honorable as well. But it was a noble alternative to some things, not to other things. If it was just, certain things, that was considered ignoble, it was considered cowardly. Well, Christian theology, following much of Jewish theology, not Josephus, but much of Jewish theology, has historically rejected suicide. And Christian theology has done so very strongly, saying only God has the right to take life. Everyone would have rejected that as the solution to depression or anything from which one could recover. So I'm just saying that, not to say that some things aren't, not to say you can't understand why some people are driven to this under certain circumstances, but to say that sometimes it's a premature escape because God still has a plan for your life. And I myself and some people I know have been through serious anguish and are happy that we lived through it and lived to see that God had a better plan for our lives, a better purpose for our lives. So just that's an excursus that's going off on a different subject. But in any case, this man was ready to fall on his sword, and Paul exhorts him not to. Wait, don't do that. We're all here, and he can speak for everybody, and nobody complains and says, no, we decided to, we want to escape. Paul made us stay, or something like that. So verse 30, he runs in, falls down before them, and says, sirs. Well, kurios means Lord. In the vocative, when you're addressing somebody directly, kuria, it can mean sir, or it can mean Lord. You don't know. But remember, they're preaching the true Lord. And so Paul corrects him in verse 31. No, believe in the Lord Jesus, and you'll be saved. The true Lord, the true kurios. So he says, sirs, what must I do to be saved? We mentioned this briefly before when we talked about how that question comes up in different ways in different parts of Luke Acts. With the rich ruler in Luke 18, with the crowds at Pentecost in Acts chapter 2. Paul, not asking it, formulating it quite that way as a question, but in Acts chapter 9 he's told what he must do. So he says, how can I be saved? And the way he can be saved is through depending on Jesus, the Lord. The jailer had heard of the slave's proclamation. They're proclaiming to us the way of salvation. So now he wants to know how to be saved. Well, they can be saved. He can be saved. All of us can be saved if we trust in Jesus.